Gee, Ireland is really in some mess now with all the debt from the banking accident, isn't it? That's not really accurate, but the corporate government said they would cover the Inter-Alpha Bank's gambling losses with generations of Irish labour and all the resources through a loan from the IMF and the EU that can never be repaid, and the television said we have no other choice. Sure they did. But that's not the root of the problem. Didn't Brian Cowen tell the people that the Central Bank of Ireland advised him to do this? Yes, he did, and of course the central bank would advise him to do this. What is the root of the problem? It seems to me that the central banks, the IMF, the ECB and the Inter-Alpha gambling group of banks are owned by the same banks, like little Russian dolls of perpetual debt. So one hand is playing all of the cards. It seems that way. Has anyone asked how this money came to exist in the first place? I don't understand where it comes from. It seems to me that it is created out of nothing and loaned into existence as a compound interest-bearing debt. Have a look at the documentary called The Secret of Oz. Who creates the money though? I think it's the same big private bank. So then, if you are correct, and the money is created as a compound interest-bearing debt, then the debt can never be paid in money. Correct? The people who create the debt end up owning everything, and, in fact, there is no actual money in circulation. Money is a means of exchange. The currency in circulation is merely debt, therefore it can never be paid. Is this called central banking? It is called fraud. So Ireland are destined to have all their land, resources, and labor taken by the bankers, who create the currency as debt, who own the ECB, the IMF, the Central Bank of Ireland and the Inter-Alpha group of gambling banks, who set up the play in the first place. Well, no, not necessarily. There is a very simple solution. Really, what other options do they have? They can drop the euro and leave the EU, and create their own non-debt-based interest-free sovereign currency? No problem. Why have they not done this already? Good question. Any ideas? I know. Without the EU, Ireland will be a poor country. Remember all the jobs they got when the government forced Lisbon through, and their welfare state will fail, people will die, the sky will fall down, and three-headed fire-breathing monsters will arise from their slumber in the depths of Croagh Patrick. The dead will arise from the grave, and eat the children of the people of Ireland, a plague of locusts and a shower of breathing bees. Easy Tiger, take a breath. Where are you getting this nonsense? I saw it on the corporate government propaganda posters for one of the Lisbon votes for the European Constitution. I can't remember which one. There were a few. Remember, it gets confusing, because we voted it wrong the first few times, before they fixed it for us. Sorry, go on. In fact, Ireland is one of the richest countries in the world. It has some of the best fisheries in the world, and it has, at a very conservative estimate, 500 billion in oil and gas reserves on its west coast. A few fish, and 500 million is not going to cut it. These guys are looking at 300 billion. We may need Jesus to do some work with the fish. That's billion, with a B. B for Bingo Ben Bernanke Big Brown Berry Balls and Beetlejuice, 500 billion. At a minimum, I suspect it may be 10 times this figure. So then they could pay off the 300 billion that they owe to the bank who owns all the banks, and creates the debt money out of nothing as a compound interest-bearing debt. That is silly. Would you pay someone for stealing from you, you fool? Look into contract law, and look up the definition of fraud. You seem to be suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Or should that be Brussels Syndrome? The nice people on the 9 o'clock news did not tell me this, therefore it cannot be true. Have you got some paperwork that says you are an official channel of information? Where is your information license? I need to see an expert. Perhaps you have an aluminium hat, sir. The state broadcaster is owned by the government, you know, like what they tell you about communist countries. Its purpose is to get you to think what the people who own the government want you to think, which is very little in fact. Look at what happened when the Trilateral Commission meeting with the Irish government in Ballsbridge in May of 2010 was mentioned on the television programming. The presenter nearly had a canary and some kittens, and rightly so. He wasn't expecting that to be brought up during the control discussion. But, I see the talking heads having heated arguments on the Talking Heads programming program. What was the trilateral meeting about? I never heard of it. Well, it's not called television programming for nothing. Who knows what the trilateral meeting was about? The government held it in secret. Maybe the international bankers and the corporate government were discussing poetry, prose and sonnets, I imagine. Yes, that would be right. Maybe they discussed expressionist painting and carpentry. What do you think? Oh, coincidentally they met in Greece the year before. What a strange coincidence. That is odd, a strange coincidence no doubt. Trilateral Commission, I must remember to look that up. Has a non-debt-based money system been used before? Sure it has. Do some reading on colonial script for starters. Debt-based currencies always collapse, as the debt increases exponentially. The euro and the dollar are in their last days now. Mike Montaigne has been talking about a system of mathematically perfected economy for decades now. It's based on mathematics instead of slavery. So where should Ireland go from here? First, they need to get rid of all the puppet politicians who haven't supported a sound non-debt-based currency and Irish ownership of Irish resources, for they are supporting economic slavery which will lead to much hardship, theft and ultimately death from starvation and lack of a health system, much worse than we see now. Eek, that's all of them, isn't it? I think so. If there are any supporting a non-debt-based currency and ownership of Irish resources by the Irish people, then they need to make a lot more noise, crank it up. Indeed, the Irish people need to research this information first, then spread it like marmalade on a winter's day, and then lay a peaceful siege on the Dáil, banging pots and pans, and drinking tea, and dancing and the like, a winter freedom festival if you will, until the parasites are purged. Peaceful, mind you, any trouble would play right into their hands. Then, when the sociopaths are gone, we can start the debt-free and interest-free currency and take ownership of the island again for the people. Would a lap of the city not do it? Surely that would show them. We could follow the unions around like dogs on a lead for an hour or two, have some songs, readjust the slavery interest rates, then we could buy the Christmas plastic junk from China. Oh, wait, we have no money for the Christmas plastic junk. And what about the angry people? Will there not be trouble? I saw the angry people on the TV when I was getting programmed. Most of the trouble is caused by professional troublemakers. It's a very old tactic. Do an internet search for Quebec agent provocateurs to see how it works. The people will need to be on the lookout for anyone causing trouble, as this will be used as false justification for the EU troops to be sent in. No trouble can be tolerated. The people must work with the Gardaí to ensure that this does not happen. Is the EU not about jobs and friends and little fluffy bunnies and flowers, and saving people from having natural medicine that doesn't kill them, and moving forward to save the world from global warming? A bit chilly, isn't it? Have you been drinking fluoridated water? You seem confused. I'm confused. Will you be watching the X Factor after? They have dancing and singing and flashy lights. God, it's like a drug. Focus, this is important. Sorry, what were you saying? All the banks are owned by the same bigger banks, like Russian dolls. The currency in circulation is a compound interest-bearing debt, a fraud. The sovereign republic needs its own debt-free currency and its natural resources back from the corporations. The people need to turn off the programming device called TV, leave the newspapers on the shelves, and go to the streets peacefully, and ensure that this is done. Bang some pots and pans, do some dancing, a winter freedom festival if you will, peacefully mind, and it may take some time, but it is a festival after all. Yeah, it took the Koreans weeks of peaceful protest in 2008 to stop their corporate government importing poisonous beef, but they won out in the end. They did not go home to watch X Factor after the union concert, and consequently they are not dead from poisonous beef. What are we waiting for? We are waiting for a hero. We are holding on for a hero till the end of the night. He's gotta be tough, and he's gotta be strong, and he's like Ray Houghton against Italy in the 1994 World Cup. That was a cracker, eh? Top corner, bang, they were the days. There is a little Ray Houghton inside all of us, my friend. Now is the time to wake him up and play him in for the Winter Freedom Festival. Ole ole ole. Now where are the pots and pans and the winter dancing shoes? Ole ole ole, I'll get my thermals for the Winter Freedom Festival. Tickets are free, capacity unlimited. Beware the politicians and the unions, my young friend. Indeed. Peace and freedom.